All right, welcome. Ever wondered how the cloud actually holds everything? The easiest way to think about it is like building a city from scratch. You're going to need land, right? And different buildings for different purposes, and of course, some insurance in case things go wrong. Well, today, we're putting on our hard hats because we're diving into the essential building blocks of Microsoft's cloud city, Azure Storage. So here's the plan, our blueprint for today. First, we're going to stake our claim on a plot of land. That's the storage account. Then, we'll check out the different kinds of buildings we can put on it. After that, we'll talk about ensuring our data with something called redundancy. And then we'll get into how to actually move in with migration tools, and finally, the everyday toolkit you'll need once you're settled.
Okay, let's get right to it. Every single thing you build, I don't care how big or small, has to start with a solid foundation. And in the world of Azure, that non-negotiable first step is your storage account. Everything starts right here.
So what is a storage account? Honestly, just think of it as your unique address in the vast city of the cloud. It's this dedicated, super secure space that gives you a one-of-a-kind name, what we call a namespace, so you can find your stuff from anywhere on the planet. And listen, this isn't just an empty plot of dirt. It comes with security gates, a guarantee of reliability, and the power to grow as big as you could ever need.
But just like in real construction, not all foundations are the same. You got to pick the right one for what you're building. I mean, are you putting up a simple garage or a massive skyscraper? That standard general-purpose V2 account, that's your all-arounder, perfect for most scenarios. But what if you need crazy speed, like for an app with a ton of users hitting it all at once? That's when you look at the premium options. They're specialized, high-performance foundations for things that need super low latency or are running huge enterprise file shares.
All right, our foundation is poured and set. Now comes the fun part. We get to start building. And here's the cool thing. Azure Storage isn't just one giant generic warehouse. It's more like a catalog of specialized buildings, each one perfectly designed for a very specific job.
First up, we've got Azure Blobs. This is your massive, practically infinite warehouse. It's the perfect place to dump huge amounts of what we call unstructured data. Think photos, videos, audio files, log files, basically anything that isn't a neat and tidy database record. You just toss your blobs of data in there, and Azure takes care of the rest. Simple as that.
Next on our tour is Azure Files. You know that shared S drive or Z drive you have at the office? This is basically that, but living in the cloud. It lets you create shared folders that any computer can connect to, whether it's a virtual machine in Azure or the laptop sitting on your desk. It uses the exact same technology, so it feels completely familiar, just like a regular network drive. The big difference? You can get to it from anywhere.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit to something called Azure Queues. This one is really cool. It's basically a post office for your applications. One part of your app can write a little message and drop it in the queue, and then, whenever it's ready, another part of your app can come along and pick up that message to do some work. This is awesome because it means your app components don't have to talk to each other directly. They can work at their own pace, which makes your whole system way more reliable.
Now, if you're building with virtual machines, VMs, which are basically computers in the cloud, then you're gonna need Azure disks. It's really that simple. These are the hard drives for your cloud computers. They attach right to your VMs and give them the storage they need for the operating system, for applications, for everything.
And last but not least in our set of buildings, we have Azure Tables. This is what's called a NoSQL store. Don't let the name scare you. It just means it's super flexible. You don't have to define a rigid structure beforehand like with a traditional database. The best way to picture it? Imagine a gigantic, infinitely large box of digital index cards that you can search through at lightning speed. It's absolutely perfect for when you have tons of simple, structured data that you need to access really, really fast.
Okay, let's jump back to that giant warehouse Azure Blobs for a second. This is really important for managing your costs. See, not all data needs to be at your fingertips all the time, right? The hot tier is for stuff you're using constantly. But as that data gets older and you don't need it as often, you can move it to cool, then cold, and eventually to the super, super cheap archive tier. It's exactly like moving old tax documents from your office into a dusty old storage unit. The further away it is, the cheaper it is to store, but it just takes a little longer to get it back when you need it. All right, so our city's built, our buildings are full of valuable stuff, our data. So what's the next logical step? We have to get insurance, right? In the cloud, we call this redundancy, and it is absolutely crucial. This is how you protect your data against, well, pretty much anything, from a single server failing to an entire region going offline. Which brings us to the big question, probably the most important one you'll ask: how do you make sure your data is safe when something bad happens? Because let's be real, things do go wrong. Well, Azure gives you some incredibly powerful ways to answer that question, and the choice you make really depends on just how important that data is to you.
The choice really boils down to this. Where do you want your backup copies to live? You can keep them all relatively close by, within a single geographic region. That's fantastic for surviving local problems, like a rack of servers failing. Or, for the ultimate protection, you can have a second copy of your data sent to a completely different region, maybe hundreds or even thousands of miles away. That's what protects you from a major, region-wide disaster.
So let's dig into that. When you stay in one region, you have two main choices. There's LRS, or locally redundant storage. That means Azure makes 3 copies of your data, but they all live inside one single data center. Think of it like making 3 spare keys for your house and keeping them all in the same junk drawer. It's better than nothing. But then there's ZRS, zone-redundant storage. This is way better. It also makes 3 copies, but it spreads them across 3 totally separate buildings or data centers in the same region. Now your keys are in 3 different safes across the city. Much safer.
But what if the whole city has a problem? For that level of protection, you need to go geo-redundant. GRS takes those 3 copies you have locally and then makes another 3 copies in a completely different part of the world. Then there's the absolute top-of-the-line option, GZRS. This is the best of both worlds. It gives you that super safe 3-building protection in your main region, and it replicates your data to that second faraway region. This protects you from pretty much any conceivable disaster.
And this is what all that protection gets you. With GZRS, you get something called 16 nines of durability. Just look at that number. That's 16 nines after the decimal point. That is so ridiculously close to 100%, it's hard to even comprehend. We're talking about a level of data protection that is, for all practical purposes, foolproof. This is the insurance you buy for data that absolutely, positively cannot be lost. Ever.
Okay, so our city is built, it's fully insured. Now we gotta move in. So how do we actually get all of our stuff, and we might be talking about massive amounts of data, from our old place into our shiny new home in Azure?
When it comes to the really big moves, you've got 2 main choices. First, there's Azure Migrate. Think of this as your online moving company. It's like a fleet of digital moving trucks that'll move your entire on-premises operation over the internet. But what if you have so much stuff that the internet would just take forever? For that, you have Azure Databox. And this is wild. Microsoft literally ships you a physical, ruggedized box. You plug it in, load up to 80 terabytes of data onto it, and then ship it back to them. It's like a high-tech, ultra-secure shipping container for your data.
But of course, not every move is a massive one-time project. You're going to be moving files around every day. So for that day-to-day work, you need a different set of tools, your everyday toolkit. So here's what's in that toolkit. For the coders and automators out there, you've got AzCopy. It's a command line tool, which means it's perfect for scripting and automating file transfers. If you're more of a visual person, there's Azure Storage Explorer. It's a regular desktop app, with a graphical interface that just lets you drag and drop files like you would on your own computer. And then there's Azure File Sync, which is kind of magical. It's a service that perfectly syncs a file server in your office with Azure files in the cloud, back and forth, keeping them both up to date. It's really the best of both worlds.
And there you have it. That's the blueprint. It really is that straightforward. You lay your foundation with a storage account. You pick the right specialized buildings, the services for each job. You buy the right level of insurance with redundancy, and you use the right tools to move everything in and manage it day to day. All the building blocks are right here at your fingertips. So the only question left is, what are you going to build?